Welcome to Lead the Room podcast, where we help those with great ideas and brilliant minds to become amazing leaders and build teams full of purpose, connection, creativity, and courage, transforming people's experience of workplaces and leadership. In 2018, we decided that the leadership playbook we saw around us wasn't working for the needs of our teams and our organisations, or frankly for us. So we ripped it up, built a new one, and watched the incredible impact that came from leading in a completely counter-cultural way. This journey transformed our experience of work, team culture, delivery, and felt so good to us. And our approach has served us and our teams in the good times and in the tough times alike. So now we're here to share our stories, experiences with you so you can become the leader you want to be, build teams that deliver amazing things in amazing environments, and inspire those around you to do the same. You and your leadership are what our workplace and people desperately need. We'll be laughing, crying, and learning together. Let's get started. So, I don't know about you, but of all the leadership courses that I've been on, I honestly don't remember anything about like a section on drama. Like, yeah, sure, there was stuff about kind of conflict and like how to manage conflict or resolving conflict. But I don't know about you, Briony, but I think like drama, when we speak about team drama, that feels really different to conflict. And honestly, it's that help with like actually managing team drama is what we need. And if I think back to my experience of leading a team, it would have just been unbelievably helpful, like to have that kind of tools and understanding of your responsibility as a leader before you even escalate to anywhere thing close to conflict.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a couple of truths, isn't there, about drama, right? And the first one is that, like, all teams have drama at some point or other. Like, it's just a fact of team life. Like, just like it is with your family. And obviously, teams are not your family. Like, that is a mistake. Don't get into that situation.
But
But,
you do,
like,
you spend a lot of time with them, right?
yeah, you
In the
do
same
spend a
way,
lot of
yeah.
time with them. So, like, these tensions, like a little bit of drama, a little bit of heat is always going to be there from time to time, no matter how amazing your culture is. I think the second thing is that no matter how much you want it to as a leader, the hard truth is it won't go away by just ignoring it. It really won't. Believe us, we've been there. We're going to share some stories in a bit. We've tried to ignore it and hope that it goes away. Hoping really hard. No, it will not just go away. And I think the third thing is that you as the leader have the power to reduce and remove it from your team. And that is actually a really empowering thing. And I think that's what we're going to talk through a bit today as well, isn't it, Lyndsey?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think acknowledging like the reason exists, because I think sometimes, and Brian and I reflect on this, like it's really easy as a leader to think, gosh, this is my fault, there's drama in my team, I'm a bad leader. But again, as Briony said, every team has drama, like different kind of sliding scale of it. But it exists because actually we all have emotions. Every single person in your team, whether they actually choose to display them or not, they have emotions. They've got personalities, they've got values, and they're all probably slightly different, which is why that drama kind of, a lot of the time, is why that drama arises. And we don't just leave those things at home. They come with us to work, and they actually influence and impact exactly how we show up at work. So that's why a lot of the time this stuff actually exists.
Yeah, and I think that's completely right, Lyndsey. And so, like, although your team is never going to be drama free 100% of the time, but you can definitely work, like I said, to reduce the level of drama. And I think that's really important, isn't it? Because when the team is full of drama, like those personality clashes or just like unclear roles and responsibilities, and people are stepping up and tripping up all over each other, whatever it is, no one is able to be their best selves. No one is doing their best work. There's no one trusts one another or feels safe. And it's our experience as leaders that if instead of freezing and hoping that the drama is going to go away, if instead you lean into it and tackle it, the impact that this can have on your team culture can be really transformative. And so today we're going to share some stories like we always do and some tips. But if you want a full, like, start to finish, here's how to tackle all the drama, top 10 causes of drama, how to tackle them. We've got a leadership learning challenge for you over on our website at www.leadtheroom.co.uk, where you can download that and get all of that top tips along with a free with a podcast that goes along with it.
And with all our free products, our paid for products, they're all things that Briony and I are like, that is what we wanted when we were leaders.
Yes.
That would have been the most useful product. And that's kind of how we've created them. So we really do hope that you do find them as practical as possible. So Briony, obviously everyone's probably itching, being like, come on then, tell us what your team drama is. So your example. So yeah, do you want to share your experience of how you've kind of seen it, how it's showed up and how you've tackled it?
Well, I think I'm going to start with a story actually about where I feel like I was the cause of the drama, because I think
Hmm.
that's one of the things, and that we're coming to this in some of the tips later on. But I think when we were creating that kind of how to tackle drama guide that we were just talking about, when we were doing that, we were really thinking about, Lyndsey, weren't we? Like, which are the sources of drama which are like in our gift as leaders to like almost eradicate just by our own behaviors, and which are like kind of more dependent on others. So this story is about when me and my team were leading quite a high stakes project. We were facilitating a big kind of senior level conference, and I thought I had been really clear with the team about who was doing what needed to be done by when, why, the purpose, all of that good stuff, the format, we had regular check-ins.
Hmm.
But as we got closer to the event, and obviously the team it was getting a bit high stakes because, all the people we were going to be leading were quite senior and people are worried. They want to make a good impression, right? And then all of a sudden, like 2 weeks out, we're like really tripping over each other. One team member who I'd asked to do one thing is doing another thing that somebody else was meant to be doing. So they're annoyed and it's causing conflict. And everyone's coming to me like, so and so is doing my job and so doing my job. And so said they'd do this by then and they haven't done it. And in the moment, we just sort of kind of muddled through. But when it didn't feel like a great experience, which was quite unusual for us as a team,
Hmm.
because normally we worked really well together. And after the event, when I kind of stood back and reflected, and you know how much we really like value reflection as a part of our leadership practice, so valuable to get insight and think about how you can learn and do things differently. What I realised was that I hadn't been clear enough on the roles and responsibilities in the team. I hadn't been clear enough on who was accountable for what by when, in a way that they could really hear. Like, because there was so much to do, I had done the thing where in my head I had a clear vision and I thought, like, I've just communicated it to them, when really like I really hadn't. Like, I needed to probably spend at least double the time really explaining things, really checking in and creating those feedback loops with them to make sure that when I thought I had communicated it to them, they had heard what I had communicated and were clear about who was doing what. And so I think it really taught me a good lesson of taking more time to just slow down, Bryony. I know you like to move very fast, slow down a bit and just make sure that everybody really does understand. And it's, for me, that was one of those causes of drama where if I had taken extra time, there wouldn't have been any drama.
Yeah. And I think that's such a powerful and practical example, isn't it? Because I think often people think about drama as being, oh, you've got team gossip and
Yeah.
it's that type of thing. But actually, so much of it is because people are just feeling uncomfortable because of perhaps your actions as the leader. That if actually you go back to some of the our early podcasts about kind of planning, that preparation, that communication, like getting that right, that foundational
Mhm.
stuff that doesn't feel sexy. It doesn't feel like the fun bit of leadership. But my goodness, if you don't do that, it's exactly like that. That drama arises. And then that leads to the gossip, to the tensions, to the, oh, I thought I was
Yeah.
doing that job. Oh no, why is he doing it? Why are they doing it? Yeah, exactly that. So such a practical thing to remind us as leaders, right? To be, okay, I think I've been clear in my head. Briony and I are awful for doing this. We're like, we've got an idea. We think we know what we're doing, but then kind of articulating it so to other people. So communicate and communicate again, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it would have been really easy. And I think if I'd gone back, this had happened like maybe,
Hmm.
early on in my leadership journey, I would have felt like this terrible guilt, like I'd messed up. And of course, like I had messed up, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
And to take responsibility for my own actions. But it's easy with these things when you realize that, like, hi, it's me, I'm the problem, it's me.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel that sense of like shame and guilt that you
Yeah.
messed up and to like, but if you get stuck there, then you can't solve it, you can't learn from it. And so I think that's where the reflection, like making time to do the reflection, really helps, because it allows you to just think, well, what would I do differently another time, rather than, oh my gosh, I'm a complete failure as a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you reflected, those changes that you'd make are such practical solutions that you can instantly kind of put into your next project, whatever it's you're leading, as opposed to, gosh, I need to really change who I am as a leader. Like,
Yeah.
these are actually quick fixes, as long as you're intentionally putting them into your practice, right?
Yeah, 100%. So, Lyndsey, go on then. Tell us your story about workplace drama.
Well, we said at the beginning about drama not just disappearing, and yeah, you can't ignore it. It doesn't just disappear. Well, like, I tried my damn hardest to let some drama on my team. Just I was like, it'll be fine, it'll be absolutely fine. And Briony, you know me, I'm very much everything's going to be fine. Like, just don't worry about it. It'll just disappear type person. And I think very early in my career, I learned kind of the hard lesson that actually it doesn't just disappear. And it is your responsibility as a leader to kind of take control of that. I had a situation, I had basically two team members who both kind of very strong personalities, very different, took very different approaches to things, and really couldn't see each other's side of the problem. And again, I think in my head, when I look back, I think I actually didn't have the courage and the confidence and probably the tools at the time. I didn't have the right language to kind of step in and say, like, this is what I'm seeing, this is why this is happening, and this is what we're going to do about it. Instead, I think in my mind, I thought, oh, we're all just different people. We come at different perspectives. Like, it'll be fine. But actually, what happened was these two individuals, it went from like sharing different perspectives to escalating to almost not even being able to really look at each other, be in the room together, to have any type of conversation. And we were a team. You have to be able to be in the same room as your team members, because, well, I mean, you just do, right? So it was really interesting because, again, whilst in my head I thought, just ignore it, it'll go away. Inside, obviously, my body, my mind was saying to me, this is not okay. Because it was the one thing that after work, when I went home in the evenings, at the weekends, it is the one thing that I worried about. But yet it was the one thing, it was consuming me with that kind of, gosh, what am I going to do? I've left it too long. Okay, I've left it long enough. I now can't do anything about it. It's gone too long. But the more I worried about it, the less I did about it, because I just felt completely out of my depth. And also I just didn't know where to start. And it wasn't until I kind of thought, this is kind of chatting to other people and thinking, that I have to do something, A, for the team, but B, actually for myself as a leader, because this isn't a healthy state for me to be in, worrying about this so much. So kind of talking with other people, thinking, how actually could I approach it? And someone gave me some really good language, almost like a coaching style. Yeah. Because I think sometimes with drama, like with conflict and drama within a team, I think as a leader, sometimes you feel you've instantly got to go to this like teacher, pupil, parent, kind of child dynamic, and you're almost giving them into trouble. Like, you're being naughty, stop behaving like that in the team. Like, you're causing issues. And I felt like that's what I was worried about doing. I didn't want to kind of tell people off. I suppose as a new leader, I didn't want to be seen as giving people into trouble. I didn't know how else to approach it until someone said, like, what about taking more of like a kind of coaching style and asking them getting them to reflect, as you said, Briony, the power of reflecting on their relationship with that person. Like, it had kind of really nothing to do with me. So coach them to come to these conclusions themselves. And actually, it was very, very powerful. And it didn't take too many meetings for it to have a significant change, for a realization from both sides, an acknowledgement that they were different people. They were never really going to see eye to eye, but actually, and they were never going to be chums outside of work. That didn't matter. That's not what I needed from them. But I needed that professionalism and that respect of, you have a different opinion, I'm here to listen to it, and actually I might learn from it. But it was the language, it was the coaching language of how to have that conversation, how to step into that conflict, that drama, which was actually escalating to probably a point of conflict, that actually gave me the courage and the confidence to do that, and the ability to then, in subsequent times that I've had that situation, like step into that situation much, much sooner than I did. I let that run way, way too long.
I think that's so brave to share that with us, Lyndsey, because I think so many people are going to really resonate with that story, because like I'm instantly thinking of like several examples where like you just freeze because you think like it's too awkward to tackle this.
Yeah.
Like I can't, like I don't know how to. I'll make it worse, not better. I
Yeah.
don't have the language. And you think of all of that, those hours you spent like agonizing over it, like frozen. And then actually, as soon as you just like leant in and tackled it, it didn't even take that long. And you could have saved yourself actually so much heartache and so much anxiety stressing over it if you just, had the tools to and the courage to like just start the conversation. But I think it's really powerful and something that's so normal for leaders.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we're going to move on to kind of the things that you should be considering as a leader when handling team drama. And some of these are really simple things that you can check yourself on as a leader. As Briony's example at the beginning around, actually, it was her actions that was creating unnecessary drama in the team. Because actually, it's really easy, isn't it, to look at the team and be like, gosh, they're causing the drama. But a little bit of reflection, like, is it me? Is it me? And I think that's such a good place to start, isn't it? Because if you can kind of tick off that, no, I don't think it is me. Okay, well, what are the other causes? But there's a couple of things that we think you should just check yourself as a leader. If you do see these things, whether they exist or not in your team, it doesn't matter, because there is always, throughout the day, there's always room and the chance that drama will arise. So Bryony, kick us off.
So I think the first one, which takes us right back to my story, right, feels very personal, and it's one that I have to constantly remind myself, is lack of clear communication. So, when your comms are poor or vague, it can really quickly lead to misunderstandings, unclear expectations, confusion, and frustration. Like in my example, team members tripping up over tasks because it's not clear who's doing what. People interpreting actions incorrectly, just causing unnecessary tension. And so I think the first thing that you can do as a leader, if you want to decrease drama in your team, is to just get really good at being clear and simple in your comms, being clear about deadlines, being clear about what done looks like, being clear about who is doing what in really specific, simple language. No need to write an essay. Just keep it simple. So that's my first tip.
Yeah, and again, so important. Second one is around personality clashes, right? So within your teams, no matter how the size of your team, everyone's going to have different personalities. They're going to have different working styles. Their values will be different. Their temperaments can be different, and all those things can lead to some kind of friction or drama in your team. And if there are differences, when unresolved, they can really escalate into ongoing tensions and potentially even open conflict, which Briony and I have experienced in our careers. And I think one of the really important things here is to know your staff, to know your team members, to really understand their working styles, understand their values, understand their temperaments. These things are as important, if not more important, than the skills that they are actually bringing to your team to do the job. Because if you don't actually get this right, their skills are actually slightly redundant, because they're not going to be able to use them to the maximum ability that they need to and you want them to. So we speak about kind of getting to know like your values as a leader and how you can understand those of your team. And I guess this will be so important. You hear Brian and I speak so regularly about knowing your team on a much deeper level, and also your team knowing each other, because it's really easy. Like, Brian, think of the amount of times where we've been in situations where someone will say, "Oh God, why did they do that? I can't believe they did that," or "I can't believe they acted like that or reacted like that." Well, you would be able to believe that someone reacted like that or acted in a situation because you would understand what that meant to them, their style, their learning style, their communication style. And as opposed, rather than actually leading to a moaning session and a little bit of a gossip session about that person, you would understand why they did something. And it would be so much clearer.
Yeah.
And I think you can then see each other's perspective. Okay, oh, I can see why you did that because X means so much to you. That's great, but that doesn't mean as much to me. And I think when you've got people working on projects together, like that is so important. Because it's amazing. I mean, I always think back to like group projects at school when you think, oh my God, I've been paired with that person, please no, like because you work so differently to them. Whereas now I think I want to be paired with someone that I'm slightly different to, because it does have benefits. So yeah, personality clashes, get to know your team on a much deeper level is a theme throughout Lead the Room, and all these podcasts you'll hear.
Exactly. Get those one-to-ones in the calendar and use them. Yeah,
Exactly.
100%. And I think our third and final tip then is about when another major cause of drama is when there's a lack of accountability in the team. And again, like one-to-ones, accountability is a really big theme here at Lead the Room. We really believe that if you're going to have a high-performing team, it's got to be an environment where everyone can thrive and be seen. But a big part of that is being accountable to each other and actually getting things done. And so I think when team members fail to take responsibility for their actions or tasks, it really creates frustration and mistrust between team members. I can think of an example where I had a team where, most of the team were really excellent at getting things done. Coming back to those like school group projects, right? You've always got that one person who's like, not pulling their weight, and everyone sees it. And if you don't do something about it as the leader, it creates mistrust, it creates drama. And so, again, I think trying to create a culture, a really clear culture of accountability in the team where people know what is expected of them and where they expect to be not called out, like not in a kind of, like you say, getting you into trouble or telling you off way, but kindly being called out if they don't do things, because then people know what's expected of them and they can trust each other and trust the system and trust the team, because they know if something doesn't go right and they don't get on with the task for whatever reason, not only are you going to have their back and ask first of all, like, what's going on, like why haven't you done this thing that was your responsibility, but they also know that things are going to be tackled if there's another reason there. So I think, yeah, really important to make sure that you've got a strong culture of accountability, because otherwise that finger pointing can really like cause drama, can't it?
Yeah, and I think, gosh, Briony and I, we've got probably endless examples of that, and I'm sure listeners are thinking, yeah, that person didn't do that today. Yeah, I want to share one about something, a report that needed to be finished in our team, and the person doing it, everyone in the team knew that it had to be finished, but the person actually holding the pen on the report
Yeah.
had a very particular working style, and they left at a particular time from work every day. And the reason was because they needed to be home at a certain time because they had a cup of tea at home in the garden, no matter what time of the year, at this particular time of day. And the impact that had on the team, but this person was not budging. They were going home at that time, and didn't finish the report. And it just it was also like a shared kind of accountability and responsibility, and the disappointment and the friction that caused in the team afterwards was actually huge. Again, but as a leader, I could not enforce that person to stay and finish the report. I'd hoped that we had kind of built this, like, look, we're on this together. But again, going back to personality types, clashes, that person was like, no, I have to, this is the time I leave. I'm going home to have my cup of tea. Like, yeah, there are some
Yeah.
things you can't argue with. Yeah.
Well, and also I think like sometimes, if people, you've got different, people who may be neurodivergent on your team
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like you can't ask people to do things that are actually impossible for them. But then if
Agree.
like coming back to what you were saying, if you know your staff deeply and
Yeah.
you know that like actually like no, they actually do have to go home to have that cup of tea, like
Yeah.
that routine
Important
like
to them.
is something that is critical to them, then at least you can talk about accountability in a different way. Right.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to leave at this time. That's the time you always leave. Get it as far as you can, this report, then
Yeah.
you're going to hand over, make sure you hand over well to
The
this
plan.
person so they can finish it by the end of the day, right? So then
Yeah.
you reduce the drama by still letting people work in a way that really works for them, but also making sure that you meet your deadlines as a team together and being accountable together, right?
Yeah. That's so important. And again, just knowing them on that deeper level, is so important. So I think it's really important, isn't it, Bryony, to remember that the majority of us don't intend to cause drama in our teams. And
Yeah.
like we said at the beginning, a little bit of drama now and then is going to be inevitable in your teams, but it's how you deal with it is the difference between it actually consuming your team, but also importantly, like your time and energy as a leader. Like that is not where you want to be spending your energy. You've got so many other things that you need to be spending your energy on and bringing great things to your team. So don't let it be drama.
Yeah, and I think often, like we were just saying, someone's poor behavior in the office, like is people want to get things done like most of the time. Like they don't want to be the cause of drama themselves. They don't want to be, have poor performance. And that's why, like we were just talking about, really understanding your staff, making sure you're having those one-to-ones to get to know them, and not just keeping things at a surface level, because then you can start if things aren't going right, and if there is friction and there is tension and people aren't accountable to each other, then you can have those conversations starting from a place of, hey, this isn't you normally, like what's going on, how can I help? And that people feel so much more seen and heard then, don't they, than like instead of like, again, when you haven't been taught the skills, quite often you can start off as like, more that kind of teacher pupil, like feel like they're getting into trouble, rather than from a place of like, we're both adults and I want to just check in that you're actually okay, and then we'll get to the work stuff. So that's really important as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So hopefully there's some really helpful tips on if you are experiencing, or as we said, you don't have to be experiencing the drama at the moment. These are really good things to get ahead of the drama. Check yourself, particularly as a leader. And as Bryony said earlier, if you want to go even deeper on this and understand more on our Learning Lab, you can purchase our drama challenge. So as every week, we do our Walk the Week, in which we celebrate, learn and grow with one another. So Bryony, do you want to kick us off with what you've been celebrating this week?
Sure, Lyndsey. So I think the thing I'm going to celebrate is actually my team this week. Like they have really shown up for me. Like we had this big you know bilateral conference this week with a kind of a big partner, a big stakeholder of ours. And you know what? We'd spent so much time preparing for it, and it didn't go as planned. And I was so disappointed and frustrated with it for a lot of reasons. Won't go into those.
Mm.
But by like I sort of was messaging my team a bit and popping into the office in and out of like facilitating this thing, and they knew that it wasn't going as I had really hoped it would, and how and given all the prep we put in, that was going to be really disappointing for me. So when it finished and we kind of like wrapped it up, I came back up to the office and they said, right, come on, let's just sit down. Let's give you some space to vent, Bryony, and let it out. And so, so I did. And then they said, right, your 20 minutes is up, Bryony. Come on, let's do something joyful. And they took me out to go and do something which was really uplifting. And so I think, I think that when we talk about how we're giving people the tools here to create that playbook, to create those teams that are full of like joy and performance and low on burnout, like that's what I'm talking about. It's like these teams that show up for me as the leader as well as where I'm showing up for you, right? And that's really powerful. So I really want to celebrate my team this week.
I love that, and what a powerful demonstration of them really knowing you. They really
Yeah.
understand you. They knew what you needed in that moment, and then how to bring you back up. And that's the thing. It's often the expectation that the leader has to do that for the team, but actually,
Mm-hmm.
you are there to support as a team. Your leader, as much as there to support you, you are a team. We just got
Yeah.
different titles. We've just got different job titles and responsibilities, but yeah, and they know how to lift you up, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, they're amazing. I really love them. So there we are. Shout out to you all, team.
Absolutely.
And then this week I've been working with a new senior sponsor, and I am just learning so much from him, like how he operates, watching how he goes about business, learning from the insights that he shares with me as I kind of share with him like my problems and that kind of stuff. And it's just been really powerful. And maybe we'll do a future episode on sponsorship. If you'd be
Hmm,
interested, then let us know. But I've been learning a lot from him.
love
And
it.
then I
Okay.
think back to the start on the growing bit is that, I've talked about this thing that I was facilitating and getting quite frustrated. And some of that was because like people had shown up and it was almost like they just expected to just like talk to each other, like have a nice chat. And I'm like,
Mm,
we need to get things done. And Lyndsey, you know that I'm a bit like that. And sometimes I can be a bit too much like that on the getting things done thing.
yeah.
But And I could feel myself in the room, like trying to push and force the conversation towards action. And I don't know that that was the most helpful way I could have showed up to actually get us to action. And so I'm still kind of reflecting on it. But sometimes, when things just aren't going as you want them to, it's just, I wonder whether I should have just been like, this is a lost cause. Just let them have a nice
Yeah.
conversation, Bryony. That's what they want. And then you'll have to find another way to pick up the actions, because I just think it led to more tension in the room. So I don't know I'm jury's still out on that one, but that's what I've been reflecting on in terms of growing.
That is such an interesting one, because you do, obviously your natural kind of tendency to be like, come on, we need to get stuff done. The time's ticking. Come on, we're wasting time. And I can just see you in that room, in that meeting. But not easy.
Yeah,
But
because you've seen it before, Lyndsey.
I'm like, come on, people, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's not a coffee morning.
Yeah, exactly.
The coffee morning's
But
next week.
anyway,
Let's move on.
yeah. Tell
Fab.
us about your walk the week, Lyndsey.
So this week, celebrating. So I went into this week for a range of reasons. I think I could feel the emotions at the beginning of the week. I definitely didn't start my week, despite all my planning and things that I'd done my Sunday. I did think, got a lot of emotion coming into the week.
Mm-hmm.
And there were certain points throughout the week that, honestly, I was sat at my desk thinking, I could just have a cry. I could literally just kind of burst into tears. And there was a couple of meetings that I was in that I thought, I'm not even listening. I'm not focusing. I'm not present in this meeting. Like, this is not okay. Now, one of my kind of core values is generosity. And often the way that manifests itself is kind of being generous to others. And actually, this week I was like, no, I need to be generous to myself. And actually really flipped it as a kind of value and being like, I need to be generous to myself. I need to give myself the time. And actually going back to a previous podcast around the meetings that you have to be at, this week I was like, I really emotionally and my energy wise, I can't be at all these meetings. And do I really need to? So I'd already done my methodical, my kind of ruthless, like, what do I need to be at a couple of weeks ago? But even on that week, on the week, I thought, do I really need, how critical is my presence at these meetings? What would be the impact? Would it be more beneficial if I actually didn't go to that meeting and just had some time at my desk thinking and not having to kind of show up at these meetings? And so I'm really kind of celebrating this week, just being generous towards myself, because it's not something I tend to do in a work context. So that felt quite good.
I think thanks for sharing that, because again, I think we some of the workplace culture says to us, like, we have to leave those emotions at the door, right? And like just kind of power on through, like, and actually I think recognizing that, actually going to those meetings, like, not only is it going to be harmful to yourself, but like also is risking you, like, putting, like, whatever the meeting is about, like, derailing it because you're not in the right mindset to positively contribute. So wise. And I think so many of us could do with hearing that, in terms of like, actually, you know what, delegate that. If you are not going to be able to positively show up because of whatever else is going on in your life, have the courage to say, I'm going to skip this one. I think that's really such a powerful lesson.
Yeah. And there was a couple of people that I did even say to, this is why I'm not going to be at this meeting.
Yeah.
And again, it felt good to say that, as opposed to just, sometimes perhaps the old Lyndsey would have sent like I'm really sorry I can't be at this meeting, probably come up with a really rubbish excuse as to why I'm not going to the meeting, which is not even true, as opposed to just saying, do you know what, I'm not in the right in the right mindset today to come to this meeting. I'm not going to add value. I'm going to sit this one out. And I just got a really nice reply to say, hope you're okay. Speak to you soon. And do you know what? And that I thought, great. There's no issues. So highly recommend, if you have one of those days, weeks, just be generous to yourself. And then learning. So we have a new member of our team who is quite kind of not a new joiner, but they haven't been certainly in the business as long as I have. And do you know what? It is one of the things that, again, I think as leaders, there is this kind of myth or this expectation that we have to do the majority of the talking. We have to be speaking a lot of the time, which is actually not true. We should be doing a huge amount of listening. And this week I've been learning so much to just sit and listen to this person, because they have got so much to offer, not just in
Yeah.
terms of like what they're doing since they've joined the business, but they're of a different generation. They're a lot younger, so they come at things from such a different perspective. They've had different life experiences, and I honestly found myself just sat listening to her. Like, I think she was like, "Are you going to say anything?" And I was like, "No, I'm just really enjoying listening to you." And I
Yeah.
think that reminder of like, gosh, you really. But I think you have to really learn to kind of listen, right? And people speak about
Mhm.
active listening, and it genuinely is a thing, right? That kind of, are you listening or are you waiting to talk? And I think often we are waiting to talk. Whereas this week I was learning to just let go and listen to everything she had to say, and I have learned so much from her, which was just great.
Amazing.
Um, and then growing. So again, I'm just thinking about kind of big changes for the next 6 months, year, whatever that's going to look like in our life, and just really trying to, I guess, grow my kind of, and I don't know what the word is around it, kind of my approach to it. So I've spoken before about quite a planful approach to things. Which I think is my natural kind of personality, my natural disposition. And I really need to grow in terms of just slightly go with it. I've said about kind of creating options this year, but that you have to be intentional about that. So that
Yeah.
I need to grow that practice of just, okay, well, this might happen or this might happen, as opposed to, but what's actually happening in 6 months' time on this date?
Oh,
Like, I need
so
to know.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And one day I'm okay with it, and then the next day I'm having a total meltdown, and the next day I'm fine, and then meltdown. So no wonder my emotions are all over the place. But yeah, and again, I think probably going back to just be kind and generous to yourself. Like
Mhm.
it'll be okay. Everything is fine. It's just life's not linear, is it? And it would be boring if it
No.
is. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
we
but
can
it is
do
really
it.
hard, isn't it? Like, and I know, well, for both of us, that kind of not being in control of things, like that, like of our own lives, that's really tough. And
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Like having
I
things like, do
feel
you know,
you, Lindsay.
I think having regular things like Brian and I having this podcast every week, I know that we do the podcast every week. So that's something that you're like,
Yeah.
we can predict, we can plan, like this is brilliant. And having that, these moments of joy every week, like really helps with that kind of process when you're feeling a little bit um, unstable, which is great.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, you know how much I love podcasting with you, Linz.
Yeah. Yeah.
So listen, let us know how your week is going. And if you haven't checked it out before, we've over on our blog, on our website, we've got some podcast reflection sheets where you can get our top tips and then write down what your walk the week is and your weekly experiment using the tips from the podcast. So do go and check that out at www.leadtheroom.co.uk. And we will see you next week.
A team full of purpose and results, people who are buzzing with ideas and the courage to try them out, and a place where you and the team can't wait for the weekly meeting. By listening to this episode, you are building your skills to become the leader that can make all this and more happen. But we want to hear from you. Tag us in your stories, send us a DM about your walk the week on Instagram so we can learn what's resonating with you most. And if you're up for helping us out and taking a moment to rate and review the podcast, send us a screenshot to hello@leadtheroom.co.uk so we can send you our 90-day leadership refresh as a thank you. Keep experimenting, and we can't wait to see you next week.